hip flexors, the iliopsoas muscle starts from the inside of your low back, runs through your abdominal cavity and attaches in the front on the hips. So
Okay, in
that-
simple terms.
In
you're gonna
simple
show-
terms,
Yes,
back to hip
okay,
through the center. And so when it contracts, it flexes the hip and it pulls the tushy this
Okay.
way. And that's a good thing when you want to do a squat, but it also has to be able to release all the way so you can come completely straight.
uh-huh,
But so if it's not releasing all the way, it keeps you in this posture. So you see that it pulls you back here and pulls you here. So you really have to now crank your back to stay upright, because otherwise you're gonna go forward. So that's where that tightness here comes from. And now add to that, this posture, it really makes you crouch farther and farther. So now I can feel my quadriceps starting to fire up, and they're firing up right here.
and we can feel that
And we can
if
feel that
you or
even.
I were to try and do
Right.
exercises, but for our kids,
And I can even feel, now look at my feet, look what my feet are doing to try and keep my balance. So that's all like a result of, oh, my feet are trying to find the floor, but I'm doing it by curling in.
so it's
So
actually,
it's a whole chain reaction.
wow,
And I'm also finding myself, A, having a hard time breathing, B, wanting to kind of do this and throw my head back to help stay up here. So now I'm getting tight in here, getting tight in my shoulders, getting tight in my neck. So it's a whole going up the chain and down the chain.
wow.
Whew.
Just the stuff on the feet though, because that's what happens with our kids. I see that curling, and when we think of posture and just walking and alignment, I'm not always thinking of
The whole
those.
synergy of where it's
Yeah,
all
yes, the
connected
back,
to.
but I'm not thinking necessarily the hip. And then as you were talking about the thigh muscles and the glutes per se, how they are actually, that's where as you were showing the muscle formation and how they group and
Right. They group together, but so our leg muscles are meant to be movers, whereas including that iliopsoas, that flexor muscle is meant to be a mover, whereas our core muscles are meant to be our holders. But when our core muscles aren't doing the job, our leg and arm muscles have to take over. So those mover muscles now become the holders.
so they're compensating for that kind of lax
Right,
hypotonic.
So those muscles that are supposed to be the, moving and shaking ones are now becoming the postural holding ones. And they're not really made to do that because they're long muscles. So that's why they tend to fatigue and tend to kind of like go, oh my gosh, so because they're not meant to have that, like our tummy muscles, they can hold forever in a day.
And they're short. I'm
And they're
thinking,
short.
yes,
Right.
physically short, and
Right.
they're compact.
Yeah.
And so what happens then by the other muscles compensating, they get stiffer.
Get stiffer and shorter and more compact too, and make moving, fluidity of movement much harder.
Wow. I'm so glad you showed that, because it was harder to see when you were doing it on Eva, but now that I see it,
Right.
that is,
Makes a little more sense, right?
yeah, but that's really incredible, just looking at the different places, because I think when we think of our feet and our kids' feet, how they roll, and oftentimes they I hear a lot of parents say, oh, my child, their foot is rolling in or dragging one foot or the other. It's immediately looking at orthotics, but I think, and
You gotta look all the way up the chain. Right?
yeah,
And it's not to say that orthotics can't help, because
Yes.
hey, the foot is what hits the ground,
Yes.
So if you correct
Support,
that position,
yes.
It can actually help you up the chain. That's why we have EVA and AFOs as well, But what is really the underlier? What's the
root cause.
root cause? Yeah.
Wow.